Okay, so I see again the class strength is very less today. So I want to remind all of you guys who are online, if you are in campus and you are not coming to the class, I won't give you attendance, and I also won't allow you to take this quiz which I'm going to have today. So I'm giving you 10 minutes. If you are on campus, come to the class. Otherwise, you are not allowed to take quiz if you are in campus and not coming to the class. I'll wait for some time before we start with the lecture today. So you have 10 minutes, people who are online. And if possible, try to come with your laptops and mobile. Okay, any doubts and queries so far in synchronization or in deadlock from whatever we discussed till now? You can take your time to look at the notes and ask me in case you have any queries. How occasionally do you have quizzes in other courses? No quiz. No one is taking quizzes. And when is your second minor? November. Okay. We'll start at 10:50. We'll first cover the banker's algorithm and then we'll have the short quiz of 10 minutes. Okay, so one more thing that I have created that additional tab in the same sheet. Many of you might have seen it in all details. So this is for the online student. So in case you want some of your colleagues to see your sheets, make sure you make an entry there. I hope the instructions are clear, right? So the idea is whoever is going to collect sheet from me, so in the row corresponding to that person, I want to see the names of the roll numbers of all other people whom you are collecting sheet for. Right? It should be a row wise entry. Fill it by Sunday. Well, I'll keep the sheets in that particular order so that nothing gets misplaced. So many of you are on campus, like I'm realizing it today. Okay. So let's start. So we are going to discuss about Banker's algorithm today. It's a generalization of the same idea which we have discussed yesterday. And the reason why it is called Banker's algorithm is because it does something which is very similar to what a bank does. We have discussed this idea of tape drives yesterday. So I'll just put the same example in terms of Banker's algorithm. So assume that these were not 12 tape drives, rather this was some money, let's say 12,000 rupees, and there are these three people, T0, T1, T2, who are in need of money. The bank has a total of 12,000 rupees, right? The first person, he requires 4,000 rupees for doing whatever he wants. Maybe he has opened up a business. Second person requires 8,000, third one requires 12,000. And they have already taken some loan from the bank. So this is what they already have. The first one has 3,000, second one has 4,000, and the last one has 4,000. Right? This leaves bank with how much money? 1,000, right? Sorry. Okay. So this leaves the bank with 1,000 rupees, right? Now the first person T0, it requires 1,000 more rupees to finish its task. Second one requires 4,000 and third one requires 8,000. And the bank has to decide to which person it should give a loan to, right? So in this case, we have discussed that it makes sense to give loan to the first person, because then first person, he gets 1,000 rupees, he has a total of 4,000 rupees here, he can finish his task and he can return it to the bank. So bank will have 4,000 rupees then, which it can then assign to person T1, who will then finish his task, give it to bank, and then it can give it to person 2. Right, he can then finish his task and return it to bank. So in case the bank gives this 1,000 of remaining rupees to T1 or T2, the bank will be in a deadlock state, because neither T1's work will be completed nor T2, so it will be waiting endlessly for them. Banker's algorithm is just a generalization of this idea. It works with the help of certain arrays and matrices. Very simple computation here. So in this case, we just had one resource, which was the tape drive. In my system, you could have many resources. So there are a lot of resources, right? So let's assume that there are m resources in the system, and each of these resources, they can have multiple instances. Like for a printer, there can be 4 printers. For a scanner, there can be 5 scanners, so on and so forth. So this matrix available, it tells you how many instances do you have for a particular resource. That's it. So it tells you how many printers are there, how many scanners are there, so on and so forth. So what do you think will be the dimension of this matrix? So I'll again repeat, there are m resources. For each of the resource, we have some instances. So this matrix, it is maintaining how many instances do you have for a particular resource. It is storing it for all the resources. So what will be the dimension of this matrix? Take a guess, you'll mostly be correct, I'm sure. See here, in this case, I had just one resource, right? I had 12 tape drives. So if I wanted to keep account for how many tape drives I have, I just needed one variable, right? In that case, the size of the matrix was 1 cross 1, which is a variable. So even having a matrix doesn't make sense here. Instead of tape drive, let's say I also had printer in this example, right? So I would need two variables, right? What would be the size of the matrix? So you can take a 1 cross 2 or a 2 cross 1 matrix, depending on whether you want a row vector or a column vector. So my question is, now we have m resources. So what should be the dimension of the matrix? M cross 1. Right? It will look something like this. So corresponding to every resource, you have a value. So for resource R0, I have 2 instances. For resource R1, I have 3 instances. Resource R2, I have 4 instances, so on and so forth. Okay. Next matrix is the max matrix. Max matrix is same as what you see here, right? Maximum need. So what is the maximum need of each process? We are asking each process for every resource, how many instances of these resource you might need. So give me an upper bound. Right. So every resource, every process tells me for R0, I need this many instances. For R1, I might need this one. For R2, I might need this one, so on and so forth. Assuming that there are n processes in this system, what will be the dimension of this matrix? N cross m, right? Okay. Then there is an allocated matrix. Allocated matrix tells you how much is already allocated to each process. So again, corresponding to every resource and corresponding to every process, it maintains this number. So let's say it looks something like this. I'll actually show you. So if you see here, in the rows you have processes, in the columns you have resources, right? So each entry, so as an example, this entry for row I and column j, it is telling me how many instances of resource j process I holds currently. So that is the available matrix, that is the allocated matrix. And then there is a need matrix. And how much more do you need? So maximum is telling you how many total you need. Allocated is telling me how much you already have allocated. So can I compute need from maximum and allocated? Right, I just have to subtract. Okay. So look at this matrix. So this is the allocated matrix, right? Can you tell me what will be the sum of a particular row? So if I take a particular row and I add up all the entries in a row, what does that tell me? So each row corresponds to a process here, right? So corresponding to each process, first entry is telling me for resource 0, how many instances of resource 0 is this process holding? How many instances of resource 1 is this process holding? How many instances of resource j is this process holding? So on and so forth, right? So if you add a particular row, it will tell you total number of instances, all the resources instances held by a particular process. If you add up a column, what will that tell me? So column corresponds to resource, right? Yes. So how many instances of this particular resource are in use by all the different processes? Okay. So here is a quick example of this. It will make the picture more clear. So we have three resources, A, B and C. So this is the available vector, right, which is supposed to be a 3 cross 1 vector in this case, or 1 cross 3 vector. Right? Here it is a 1 cross 3 vector. So it tells me of different resources, how many instances you have which are available. We have 5 processes, P0 to P4, right? So all these vectors, they are given to you. So this one is the max vector. So corresponding to every process, it tells you how many instances of a particular resource you want. So P0 at max, it's going to request 7 instances of resource A. P4 at max, it will require 3 instances of resource C. It won't require more than that in any period in time. So we ask this data from all the processes before they start. Allocated tells you at a particular time instant how much they already hold. So P0 at a given time here, it has no instance of resource A, it has one instance of resource B, P3 has one instance of resource A, one instance of resource C. When I say instance, it's analogous to copies, right? This many copies of that particular resource. Okay. And how can now we compute this available J? So see, this available J will keep changing with time. So as more and more processes, they will start holding more and more resources. This available vector will change. So initially it was 10, 5 and 7. This was the maximum resources available in the system. Now at this particular time, how do I compute these numbers? So as we discussed, right? So corresponding to resource A, this is the allocation, right? P1 has 2 instances of resource A, P2 has 3 instances, P3 has 2 instances. So how many are in use? 2 plus 3 plus 2, 7 are in use. Total I have 10. So how much I have available at this time is 3. Similarly, you can compute it for B and C. For B, I have 2 in use. I had total 5, so 3 are available. For C, 5 are in use, 7 were total available. So 2 are available at this particular time. Okay. And how do we compute this need matrix here? Need is how much these processes need. So as an example, so what will be the formula for need Ij? Max minus allocated. So look at P naught. So P naught for resource A, maximum it requires 7 instances of resource A. It doesn't have any instance of resource A as of now. So it still needs 7, right? P naught it requires 5 instances of resource B. It already has 1. So it requires 4 more. Right? So to compute this need Ij, you simply have to subtract this allocated Ij from max Ij. It's a subtraction of both of these matrices. Okay. Now the question is, how should we allocate? Right? Which process should be given what resource? And it's very easy to see it here. So let's see. So process 0, it requires 7, 4, 3. Is it possible to allocate it? Right? No, we cannot give it because I have only 3, 3 and 2 available. So I cannot fulfill process 0's need. Okay, what about process 1? We can fulfill its need. Right? So similar to the previous example, so now I can give one resource, one instance of A to this process 1, 2 of B and 2 of C. Right? And all these matrices will change in that case. So what will happen? So I give 1 of A, so it starts having how much? So see, this allocated matrix will change, right? So I give it 1 more, and here you give it 2 more, and here you give it 2 more. So that will be the change you will see in allocated matrix. So it becomes 3, 2 and 2, right, which is equal to max Ij. So basically this process 1, it can now finish its computation, and after it finishes its computation, it will return all these resources back to the bank, right? When it returns back, let's say it has completed its computation, process 1 completed here, right? So what will be the available matrix now? Previously it was 3, 3, 2, right? Can you tell me what it will be? So you can see it in two ways. It's just some sort of normal mathematical calculation. So see, P1 it was previously holding 2, 0 and 0, right? It will return all of these back. So it will become 5, 3 and 2. You can also look at it like it has changed to 3, 2 and 2. So in that case, you should first of all subtract this 1, 2 and 2 from this available matrix and all this back. Add all of this back to this. Right? In any case, you'll get the answer 5, 3, 2. Interrupt me if something is not clear. I might be going a bit fast here. Okay. So now process 1 is completed and we have available 532. Can we now execute some other process? So this one is finished here, right? Its needs are met. Right? So we can execute process 3. We can also execute process 4, right? So let's execute process 3. So process 3, it requires 0, 1 and 1. It will take it from this 532, finish its computation and return back what it already had. So how will the available matrix change then? Process 3, it returns 2, 1, 1. So it will become 7, 4, 3, right? And you see now, in this way we can actually finish all the processes. So process 3 is done now, right? With 743, I can execute process 0 now, right? So when you execute process 0 now, it will execute and return back. So it will become 754. I'm sorry, 753, right? It's also finished. Then you can do process 2. It will execute and return back the resources, and then you can execute process 4. Right? So such a sequence, it is called a safe sequence. Safe sequence is When I'm given the process in this particular state, I can actually go ahead, execute all the processes without any possibility of deadlock. What is an unsafe sequence? Such a sequence which can result in deadlock. So if in this example, as we discussed, if we would have given that one resource to T1, it would have become an unsafe sequence. Okay, I'm saying one thing here. So I'm saying unsafe sequence is the one which might result in a deadlock. So in this particular case, if I would have given this 1000 rupees to T1, I am saying we might have resulted in a deadlock. It's not necessary that a deadlock would have been there. Why? So look at it. So this one tape drive, right, which T naught wanted one tape drive. Instead of giving this one tape drive to T naught, I gave it to T1, right? So T1 now starts having 5 tape drives, right? And it still requires 3 more, right? T naught cannot proceed because it requires 1 more. T1 cannot proceed because it requires 3 more. T2 cannot proceed because it requires 8 more. And bank has nothing. But I'm saying the system is, no, I cannot guarantee that the system will be in a deadlock. There is only a possibility. Why am I saying that? So I'm saying that because it is their maximum need. Right, so each process, it doesn't tell you exactly how much it will require. You are just telling me I might need this much at max. So maybe actually T1 during the running of the program, it didn't require 8 instances. Although 8 was the maximum, it required less than that. So in that case, there won't be a deadlock, right? So not all unsafe sequences will result in a deadlock. Some of them might result. Again, it depends on how these processes, they require resources. But what we try is, we always take this worst case condition and we take the maximum need in account, and accordingly we proceed. Okay. So if you see in this particular example, we have figured out one safe sequence. So we said we can first execute P1, then we can execute P3, then we can execute P0, P2 and P4, right? So there can be many safe sequences. It's not that there will be only one safe sequence. Maybe after P1 and P3, I might have executed P2 and then P4 and then P0. So that is also a safe sequence. So that is what all Banker's algorithm does, right? So I have told you with one instance how it works. You can figure out the pseudocode on your own. So I'm leaving that to you. So pseudocode is nothing but assume that you are given all these matrices and you have to write a code for that. How will you do that? At any given time, you will check all the values which are in need ij, and you can compare them with the available j matrix, and whenever you feel that yes, I can allocate it, any one process needs can be met, you will allocate this much resources to them. After computing, that particular resource will release that many resources, and then you can move further and then see if there is some other process whose needs you can complete, so on and so forth. Now, can you comment something on the complexity of this algorithm? You have m resources and n processes. So how much time will it take for us to come up with this safe sequence? How many operations will we be doing? So we first of all, we looked at this need ij matrix to come up with the first process which we wanted to execute, right? And we came up with the answer that that process, it is going to be P1, right? But how many computations will it take for me to actually decide that it's going to be P1? So I'm comparing each of this need row, right, with every time with this available. So how many numbers am I comparing here? So I'm comparing 743 with 332. Then I'll compare 122 with 332. Then you'll compare 600 with 332. How many comparisons? N into M, right? So the first time we did N into M comparisons. Okay. And then maybe we found a process which could execute. In case we couldn't find a process which could execute, then there is no safe sequence. Assume that the need ij, it was always greater than available j. In that case, the system is already in a deadlock. If we came up with a process like P1 in this case and we executed it, now we have to decide on second process which could run. How many computations will we require next time? N minus 1 into m, right? Exactly. So that is the complexity of this. So n into m plus next time one row decreases. So it's going to be n minus 1 into m plus n minus 2 into m, so on and so forth. So what will be it? Of the order of n square m, right? So this is the complexity of your Banker's algorithm. Now, to deal with deadlocks, we could actually do two things. So first of all, we can do deadlock avoidance as we are doing it with the help of Banker's algorithm, keeping a track of all the resources in the system and how much each process will require. We also discussed about another approach, let the deadlock happen. When the deadlock happens, we'll detect a cycle and we'll break it, right? What will be the complexity of that? Which one should we prefer, right? Letting a deadlock happen or this one? So the complexity of that one will be equivalent to the complexity of detecting a cycle in a directed graph, right? So what is the complexity of finding out a cycle, detecting a cycle? It's of the order of n square, where n is the number of nodes in your graph. You can go and look back into what exactly the algorithm is if you want to go in further details of this. So order of n square, but n there is the number of nodes in the graph, right? And what is the number of nodes? You have all the processes in that graph and you have all the resources in that graph. So that n is not same as this n here, right? So in that case, it is going to be order of n, order of n plus m square, right? For detecting cycles in a graph. Okay, but in reality, we don't use any of these. So we neither use the detection approach nor we use the Banker's approach. So mostly what is done in your system is something which is called the ostrich method. So ostrich method is whenever there is a sandstorm, so what ostrich does it dumps its head in the sand so that it feels there is no sandstorm around. So that is what your systems do. So most of the modern days computing systems, they know that deadlocks occur rarely, maybe once in a year, something like that. So they don't actually deal with that, they just let it happen. Right? So that's why sometimes you might see that your system actually hangs up. So it can hang up, it can hang because of a number of reasons, but deadlock might be one reason for that. So in that case, you can simply restart your system. Okay. So we're done with deadlock. So it's not an algorithm actually. Won't call it an algorithm. It's just a method. Okay. So we'll stop here and then proceed with the quiz. Okay, so we are done with deadlocks. I think we have finished 2 units and next week we'll start with memory management. In the modern operating systems? The operating system does nothing other than deadlocks. It does nothing about the deadlocks. So if it detects it, then it will have to run an algorithm from its own side, right, to detect all those cycles, which will be an additional overhead, right? So that's why it doesn't detect. It lets it happen. So in case you write a program, or let's say you write a multi-threaded program in which you voluntarily have deadlock, so both the processes will be in a deadlock state. You might want to do that with your system and see whether it's able to resolve that or not. Okay. So those of you who have mobiles and laptops, you can attempt the quiz on your device, right? What happened? Why? Oh, is there a problem? I have few sheets with me. So in case no option is possible for me, you can take a sheet from me and come and sit in this front desk and attempt it here. Okay. So just a second. So there are two questions and both of the questions are thinking based. So don't take the quiz too seriously. It's just so that you learn the concept, right? Quizzes are having a low weightage. So just try to attempt it honestly. That's what I want, right? And I'll also get an idea of how much you are understanding. And if you are cheating from your friends, all of you might go wrong. Okay, just a second. So I'm sending you the link in the chat window. You can go ahead and start attempting it. The link is there. If you want these sheets, you can come and sit here and attempt. And if there are any questions, you can ask me if something is not clear. So you have 10 minutes, right? It's 11:16 now, 11:26, I'll close it. You can use your notes. You can use internet, it's fine. There is no negative marking, so you can attempt the question. Two more minutes. One more time. 11:30. Take it, take it. If you want all the more, let me know. I'll give you. So one person who has submitted, in case, so I don't want to reveal his name, in case he wants to submit again, you can send me a response on my email, since I have extended it till 11:30. So those who are submitting, you can leave. I'll take attendance from this quiz today. How many of you have submitted? No one wants to leave. Abhinav, Dheeraj, Shubhradeep, no one is here. Aryan, uh, okay, one more minute. Fine. Submit it quickly. I'm closing it. In a countdown of 10.
Question minor paper is so easy. Like I'm not able to put my name.
I got it. That's mistake from my side. I'm giving the edit access. I'm sharing it in the chat. I'll have to share a new sheet. Okay, okay, okay. Okay, I'm closing it now. Welcome.